Welcome to this edition of News Today, a series in which we discuss and briefly analyze the important news of the day. Let's have a look at today's main headlines. The Cabinet approves Memorandum of Cooperation between India and Japan on Semiconductor Supply Chain Partnership. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development releases the International Migration Outlook 2023. The UN Convention to Combat Desertification launched its first ever data dashboard. The Cabinet approves nutrient-based subsidy rates on phosphatic, potassic fertilizers for the Rabi seasons 2023-24. The accelerated ice melt in West Antarctica unstoppable, research suggests. The Bureau of Indian Standards approves indigenous charging standards for light electric vehicles. Starting with the first main news of the day. The Cabinet approves Memorandum of Cooperation between India and Japan on Semiconductor Supply Chain Partnership. The Memorandum of Cooperation was signed in July 2023 and it will remain in force for a period of 5 years. It intends to strengthen cooperation between India and Japan towards three major aspects broadly. Firstly, the enhancement of semiconductor supply chain through government-to-government and business-to-business cooperation. Secondly, recognizing the importance of semiconductors for the advancement of industries and digital technologies. And finally, to improve employment opportunities in the field of information and technology. When it comes to the significance of resilient semiconductor supply chain, it will be crucial for reaping the benefits of fourth industrial revolution, along with powering the renewable energy systems, enabling green transportation, and facilitating electronic device manufacturing. However, there are certain challenges for the semiconductor supply chain for India. The first and the foremost is the nascent stage of the semiconductor industry in India, as India accounts for only 1% of the global trade in semiconductors and 0.5% of the global semiconductor sales. Apart from this, there is a lack of manufacturing clusters for building a successful semiconductor production ecosystem. Also, the semiconductor manufacturing is concentrated in nature, as about 75% of the global manufacturing is concentrated in China and East Asia. Herein, Taiwan and South Korea account for almost 100% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. Having said this, let's have a look at the steps that can be taken. Herein, the focus on market-based incentive programs aimed at advancing India's semiconductor research, design and production capabilities is needed. Also, the need is to bridge key gaps and vulnerabilities in design infrastructure, patent protection and workforce development. The government, however, has taken certain initiatives for semiconductors. These include the Program for Development of Semiconductor and Display Manufacturing Ecosystem in India and the India Semiconductor Mission under the Digital India Corporation. Moving on, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD, released International Migration Outlook 2023. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development is an international organization headquartered in Paris. It has 38 members and India is not its member. This edition focuses on labor market integration of migrant mothers and on fertility patterns among the migrant populations in the OECD countries. Before we go any further, let's understand what migration is. It is the movement of persons away from their place of usual residence, either across an international border or within a state. Coming back to the key findings of the report, India has emerged as top country of origin of new citizens in the OECD countries in the year 2021, with 4 lakh new migrants. The permanent type of migration to the OECD countries reached a record level of 6 million in 2022. This was driven by family migration, followed by managed labor migration and free mobility. Germany, Poland, and the United States host the highest number of refugees from Ukraine in absolute terms. When it comes to the immigrant mothers, however, they face disproportionate disadvantage, both compared with immigrant women without children and vis-a-vis their native-born peers. Having said this, while migrant women tend to have more children than their native-born peers, their total fertility rate is still below the replacement level in the most of the OECD countries. Also, there is a 20% gap in employment rates between immigrant and native-born mothers. When it comes to the barriers to maternal employment, individual preferences and cultural factors stand out. Plus, The migrant mothers are often trapped in inactivity due to childcare responsibilities.
UNCCD has launched its first ever data dashboard. Before going further, let's briefly discuss UNCCD. UNCCD is the only legally binding framework set up to address desertification and effects of drought. It came into being in 1994 and is headquartered at Bonn in Germany. And India is a signatory to UNCCD. Coming back to the recently launched dashboard, the dashboard compiles national reporting figures from 126 countries, which shows that land degradation is advancing at an astonishing rate across all regions. Now, what is land degradation? Well, land degradation is the deterioration or loss of productive capacity of the soils for present and future. Let us go through the key findings of the compilation. Between 2015 to 2019, at least 100 million hectares of healthy and productive land were degraded every year. 9.45% of the land in India has been reported to be degraded. Between 2016 and 2019, nearly 51% of global reported land area and 37% of India's land area was affected by drought. Eastern Asia, Central Asia, Latin America, and Caribbean regions experienced the most severe forms of land degradation. 109 countries have set voluntary land degradation neutrality or LDN targets for 2030. What is LDN? Well, LDN is a state whereby the amount and quality of land resources necessary to support ecosystem functions and services to enhance food security remains stable or increase within specified ecosystems. The various initiatives taken by India for land degradation are the joining of the voluntary Bonn Challenge Pledge to bring into restoration 26 million hectares of degraded and deforested land by 2030. India has also prepared a desertification and land degradation atlas which covers state-wise areas of degraded land.
In another news, the cabinet approves nutrient-based subsidy rates on phosphatic and potassic fertilizers for Rabi season 2023-24. The subsidy amount of Rs 22,303 crores on phosphatic and potassic fertilizers for Rabi season is effective from October 1st, 2023 to March 31, 2024. Rabi crops are sown in winter and harvested in the spring. Some popular Rabi crops include wheat, barley, mustard, cabbage, cumin, linseed, and sunflower. Since 1st April 2010, subsidy on phosphatic and potassic fertilizers is governed by the Nutrient-Based Subsidy Scheme, which is a central sector scheme under the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers. Its objective is to improve the agriculture productivity, to encourage competition among fertilizers companies, and to reduce the burden of subsidy. The center provides a fixed rate of subsidy on nutrients, namely nitrogen, phosphate, potash, and sulfur on annual basis. An additional subsidy for micronutrients, namely boron and zinc, is also provided. At present, 25 grades of phosphatic and potassic fertilizers and 18 grades of nitrogen, phosphate, potash, and sulfur's complex fertilizers are covered under the scheme. Urea, however, does not come under the nutrient-based subsidy scheme. Also, when it comes to nutrient-based subsidy, there are certain benefits. It aids in restoring soil health by addressing nutrient imbalances of the NPK and the lack of micronutrients through use of fertilizers on specific soil moisture conditions and crop needs. It also helps in improving growth of the indigenous fertilizer industry.
According to a recently conducted research, the accelerated ice melt in West Antarctica is unstoppable. The researcher used a high-resolution computer model of the Amundsen Sea. Ocean-driven melting of floating ice shelves in the Amundsen Sea is the main process controlling the sea level rise. The Amundsen Sea is located off the coast of West Antarctica. Now let us know about the ocean-driven melting of floating ice. Well, it happens in the following sequence. Melting causes the retreat of the grounding line, that is a line where the ice first goes afloat. This reduces the resistance to ice flowing across the grounding line. Now, faster flow near the grounding line causes more horizontal stretching, leading to thinning. That creates steeper surface slopes, which increases the stress which drives the ice forward. The faster flow inland causes thinning to propagate even further into the interior of the ice sheet, increasing the contribution to sea level rise. Let us take a look at the impact of the recent revelation. West Antarctic ice sheet, if completely lost, could contribute to sea level rise of up to 5 meters. As regards the impact on coastal cities, over a third of the global population resides within 100 kilometers of the coast, making them vulnerable to sea level rise. Moving to the next news. Recently, the Bureau of Indian Standards has approved the indigenous charging standards for light electric vehicles or LEV. The approval is given to an indigenous AC and DC combined charging connector standard known as IS 17017-2023. It is the world's first ever combined AC and DC charging connector standard for LEVs, which includes two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and microcars. It has been developed through the collaboration of Niti Aayog, the Department of Science and Technology, two-wheeler maker Ather, and other government and industry stakeholders. The significance of introducing a charging standard is supported by the following facts. It creates an open ecosystem with interoperability that will foster better adoption of EVs. It ensures the emergence of hybrid, cost-efficient infrastructure for both fast and slow charging. It reduces the cost of manufacturing and brings down the cost of EVs. It reduces range anxiety among customers. Other government initiatives for EV adoption are faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles in India, also known as FAME India scheme, to reduce dependency on fossil fuel. Production linked incentive or PLI scheme for the automotive sector to boost domestic manufacturing of advanced automotive technology or AAT. The capping of the maximum tariff for the EV public charging. The reduction of GST on EVs from 12% to 5%. Last but not the least, a waiver on road tax on EVs. Some of the developed countries of the world have already introduced charging standards, like the Tesla standards in the United States and GBT in China. The place in news for today is Iceland. Recently, the Prime Minister of Iceland joined the women on strike over equal pay. Let us know about some important geographical features of Iceland, which is also a member of NATO. Iceland, with its capital Reykjavik, is an island country in North Atlantic Ocean located between Greenland and Norway. The coastline of Iceland meets Greenland Sea in the north, the Norwegian Sea in the east, the Atlantic Ocean in the south and the west, and the Denmark Strait separates it from Greenland on northwest. Vanadals is the highest peak of Iceland, whereas Spjörsa is its longest river.
As we conclude today's main news, let's go through some quick updates. Recently, an Adi Mahotsav was inaugurated in Ahmedabad. It was organized by TriFed. TriFed was established in 1987 under the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act 1984 and falls under the Ministry of Tribal Affairs. Recently, the Prime Minister chaired the 43rd Pragati meeting. Pragati is a multi-purpose and interactive ICT platform launched in 2015. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved the inclusion of Jamrani Dam multi-purpose project of Uttarakhand under the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana Accelerated Irrigation Benefit Program. The scheme was launched in 2015-16 and is a centrally sponsored scheme under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. The Asian Development Bank has approved a $400 million policy-based loan to India for sustainable urban development and service delivery program, which aims to improve access to basic urban services in India. ADB was established in 1966 and it has 68 members including India. Recently, New Zealand criticized India's demand for 41 Canadian diplomats to leave, referring to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. The convention was signed in 1961 and has currently 193 parties to it. India ratified the convention in 1965. The summit of three basins was held in Brazzaville, which is the capital of Congo. The three basins are Amazon, Congo, and the Borneo-Mekong Southeast Asia Basin. The Competition Commission of India has become a member of the steering group of the International Competition Network for the first time. The International Competition Network is a specialized yet informal network of 140 competition authority agencies. According to an analysis by Indian Council of Medical Research, India will likely miss reaching the 25 by 25 target. The 25 by 25 target was set by the World Health Organization and the United Nations in 2013. It targets a 25% reduction in premature mortality for 4 non-communicable diseases by 2025 compared to 2010. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to the test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answers to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.